until it's over. These last 10 days, we can't be thinking that we got it in the bag. We can't get cocky about this yet. You know, we got to keep on working extremely hard. We got to leave the dancing to the stars.
Okay, no dancing yet, but Sarah Palin getting close to moving toward that end zone.
She is, and you know what? I think we can bring her on top line to do maybe a little one-on-one shtick with the two of us. All right, top line starts right now.
Hello and welcome to ABC News Top Line. I'm Rick Klein in Washington.
And I'm Amy Walter here in our New York bureau.
Every day at noon Eastern, we bring you all the latest in politics, including the shtick, and lots more. Twitter.com/Rick Klein, Twitter.com/Amy E. Walter. Up at the mothership, Amy, tell us what has your eye today.
Right. I'm starting to think that instead of the TLC show where she's showing life in Alaska, maybe she does need her own stand-up show. Just a thought. All right. My first top line today, get your ground game on. This is what the Democrats and DSCC Chairman Bob Menendez are telling reporters today, that despite all the talk about the so-called enthusiasm gap, early votes show that they got their voters to the polls and got those votes in the bank. However, Rick, as you very well know, turnout isn't the only thing that Democrats have to be worried about. Independents, of course, a big piece of this. And we just don't know what to compare this to.
That's right. You have to filter it out for knowing the Democrats have the better ground game and are more likely to drive out people for early votes. We can't measure this in the enthusiasm get necessarily, but Democrats are trumpeting some of these numbers to say it's not necessarily going to be quite the wipeout that some pundits would have you believe. Next up today, it is going road. That's R-H-O-D-E, road, as in Rhode Island, where President Obama is spending the day just 8 days before the election. One of the bluest states in the nation is what has his attention today. And even in Rhode Island, he can't avoid some of the various angst in the Democratic Party. Check out what the Democratic candidate for governor, Frank Caprio, said in a radio interview this morning.
I never asked for President Obama's endorsement. He could take his endorsement and really shove it, as far as I'm concerned.
And it's a good thing for him that he hasn't gotten said endorsement. President Obama staying out of this race, but Frank Caprio not so happy about it.
Well, and what's really interesting about this, remember, is the fact that Lincoln Chafee, who was a Republican senator from Rhode Island, running as an independent in the race for governor, and there's some talk that the president has stayed out of this race because Lincoln Chafee endorsed him in 2008. All right, we're going to now moving on to the next top line, 1995 all over again, as Bill Clinton barnstorms the country. It feels a little bit like 1994 or maybe 95. A lot of talk in today's New York Times from Republicans who are somewhat wistful for the days of the Clinton White House. There was a time, Trent Lott says in the New York Times, you know, when Clinton, we used to talk to each other all the time, through back channels, middle of the night. I'd go up into family quarters. We'd have coffee at 9:15 in the morning and talk, of course, as well, Rick, about the fact that you're going to see a more humble, perhaps, president, and even a humble Mitch McConnell coming into the 2011 legislative season.
No, that's very, very much the case. What's so interesting about seeing Bill Clinton out there is the guy has resuscitated his image to such a large degree, and he's going into parts of the country where President Obama just can't go. We talked about the blue state tour of President Obama. It's a red state tour for former President Clinton. And finally today, poll and a prayer. Christine O'Donnell has shed some light on why she's running for Senate. This is what she said in an interview airing today from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Quote, "I know that God called me to this. We'll tackle that last part after November 3rd, but I truly believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of declaring, and that's what we're doing. We're praying every day, and we see it working." She says specifically that after the prayers, she saw a bounce in the polls and closed the gap a little bit. I'm not sure that God has a rooting interest in the Delaware Senate race, Amy, but it is interesting to see this. She's obviously reaching out to a particular type of voter through the CBN.
Very true. And yeah, God seems a little busy these days. I don't know if he's picking sides anywhere, but we'll see.
Indeed. Well, we're joined now from Dallas, Texas, by Amy Kremer of the Tea Party Express. She's been one of the leaders of the Tea Party movement for many months now. And Amy, we're getting very close to the end stages here. So I just want to ask, you look at the big picture, we see a lot about Christine O'Donnell, Sharon Angle. A lot of the headlines have been about some of the Tea Party candidates. Net balance this year, will Republicans win more seats, or will they have cost some seats because of the Tea Party energy in the party?
I think they'll win more seats. I mean, January wasn't that long ago, and everybody said that Scott Brown couldn't win that seat in Massachusetts, and he won it fair and square. And look at these primaries that, in Alaska, highest Republican voter turnout in history, the percentage that Christine O'Donnell won. I mean, the bottom line is that, we don't need money to do this. It's passion, it's fire in the belly. These people are motivated, they're fed up with politics as usual, and they're going to turn out the vote. They're working very hard, and so I think we're going to see some surprises next Tuesday.
Amy, bring us to that enthusiasm question, because as we talked about in the opening, there's a lot of talk from Democrats that this enthusiasm gap maybe is overstated, that they're doing much better in the early vote. What are you hearing about and seeing in some of these places like Nevada, like Colorado, where there's an early vote component? Are you guys doing stuff there, and are you hearing about organizing on the ground for that early vote?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally went and voted early 2 weeks ago in the state of Georgia, and I had to stand in line for early voting. There are many organizations, Tea Party Express included, that are working very hard to get out the early vote. Phone calls going into these states, people going door to door doing canvassing. Probably more volunteers for these campaigns than ever before. The people are really motivated. We've worked hard for the past year and a half to change these people's minds in Washington, D.C. We haven't been able to do so, so now we're going to change their faces, and that's what's motivating the people.
Let's talk a little about these changing faces. What will the Tea Party caucus look like inside the Republican Party on Capitol Hill? What are they going to mean for leadership? Are they going to follow leadership's lead on things and vote as a bloc?
I can't speak to that right now. We have to wait till next week and see what actually happens. But I feel sure that we're going to send constitutional and common sense conservatives to Washington, and they're going to stand on principles and values and not, waver according to the way that the political wind is blowing. And that's what the people expect of them. We're going to hold their feet to the fire, and these people are going to be on probation, and the same thing's going to happen to them that's happening to the incumbents right now. If they don't do what they're sent there to do, they'll be voted out as well.
Do you think that Jim DeMint should be the new leader in the Senate?
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't even thought about it. We haven't been concerned about it. We're just working very hard to send Sharon Ingle, Christine O'Donnell, Joe Miller, Marco Rubio, and the list goes on to Washington, and that's what we're focused on.
I've heard this term, and you just talked about constitutional conservatives, and a lot of people have talked about the vision of the Constitution that the Tea Party candidates and Tea Party members have. What will it mean in practice? How will they govern in a way that's been different than what we've seen on Capitol Hill, even under Republican leadership?
Well, we want to follow the process that's outlined there in the Constitution. When the health care vote was up, we had people in Washington that were determined to push through the health care legislation regardless. Even violating the process if need be in an effort to get that legislation through. And that's not what we want to see happen. We want everything to be out there on the table, for everybody to see. No backroom deals. Let's work together on it, and let's get this country back on a sound footing. We're committing economic suicide right now. We can't sustain that.
One quick question about Alaska. The polls up there showing that Lisa Murkowski is surging, the NRSC sending money in to help Joe Miller. Tell me what you think's going on there, and what are you guys going to do to help Joe Miller?
Well, I think Joe Miller's going to win that race. He won the primary fair and square. As I said, the highest Republican voter turnout in history in the primary there. And, even Alaskans want fiscal responsibility. When these people go to the polls across this country, that's what they're voting on, is the economy. And even Alaskans are being affected, with the downturn in the economy. And it's about educating these people so that they're empowered to understand how things are working, and so that they make the correct decision when they go to the poll. And I feel very good about what's going on in Alaska, and I feel that Joe Miller will win that race next week.
Amy Kremer, final question. If you had to pick one race that you'd focus on and say, this is where we're going to really see the Tea Party movement flex its muscle next Tuesday, what would you choose?
Oh, geez, that's a hard one. I don't know. They're all important. They're all
Is it Nevada where it's up against Harry Reid?
I don't know that I could, of course, look, I've said it before, Harry Reid is our #1 target here in the United States for this movement. I mean, he is the Senate Majority Leader, and we would like to see Harry retire. It's his time to go.
All right, Amy Kremer of the Tea Party Express, we thank you for being on from Dallas. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.